Where do you guys want me looking? Just try to pick up.
Just
look right at me the whole time.
All right, we're here with the legend Jon Anik. Jon, at the Hall of Fame, you've been doing a lot of these. Some really good nominees going in here tonight. We got obviously the fight with Robbie Lawler. What are you looking forward to the most with the Hall of Fame tonight?
So Jose Aldo is probably the fighter on this roster that makes me the most starstruck of any athlete in the UFC. So I'm certainly looking forward to seeing him headline the class. But I think my most emotional moment is going to be when I have my opening remarks about Jens Pulver, because anyone who saw our live broadcast and saw his reaction when he found out he was going to be inducted knows how much it means to this individual. And I think for a pioneer like that, you never know when your number is going to be called. And I think at some point, some doubts started to creep in as to whether or not Jens Pulver was ever going to get this distinction. So I'm very excited for Jens. I think it's going to be an emotional night for all of Team Pulver.
And your reaction to the GSP announcement tonight, I think I'm Canadian, I'm ecstatic to see him back in this invitational.
I saw him backstage. I said, I'm actually more excited to hear you on a microphone than to watch you compete. And I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but Georges St-Pierre has so much to offer this sport, whether it's on a microphone or competing as a grappler. Like when he does a Q&A, it's amazing just how much I can extract from even his shortest answers. So I'm excited to see him commentate. I'm excited to see who they choose for him as an opponent. But the more Georges St-Pierre, the better, and having him back in the fold is just great.
It should be Khabib, right? I mean, that makes sense for George to come back and do a grappling match with him.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll see if Khabib has the appetite for that. But
and just last one for me, did you get your chair fixed?
So my mother, she's trying to fix this chair. I never thought my mother was starting to show signs of being older until she was like hell-bent on fixing the chair that I broke. The chair's broken, it's in the garage, and if I need to buy my mom a full set of 8 dining room chairs, then that's what I'll do.
Jon Anik, someone who's really made a burst on the scene, Laura Sanko finally calling UFC events. Obviously, you're one of those guys really anchored in that chair. Can you talk about what it would be like to see her, not just fight nights, but possibly soon a pay-per-view on the microphone?
I think it would be amazing. She's added so much to our broadcast team, particularly when it comes to her jiu-jitsu analytics, right? For me, as a guy who never wants to put on a gi again, right, the most valuable thing for me to have in a booth is a jiu-jitsu expert. And I think already she is one of our elite, best grappling analysts just in terms of her ability to simplify what is inherently complicated and break down everything that's happening on the ground. So I think she's already added a lot, and you might see her next to me sooner than you think.
You mentioned about GSP and like we said about Khabib, everyone would love to see that as a dream matchup, perhaps just in the grappling. If that did happen, somewhere down the line, perhaps, how do you think that would ever go down?
I think it would be competitive. I really do. I just wonder how Khabib would sort of handle the preparation. We know Georges St-Pierre's training 24/7, 365. I think it'd be interesting to see what weight class they would compete in, but I think it would be competitive. I don't know if either guy finishes the other, but I would pay to watch.
If you had the week off from a UFC event, would you use it to go to Wimbledon or go to the US Open?
So my bucket list sporting event is to go to Flushing and witness a U.S. Open, right? Andre Agassi is one of my favorite athletes of all time, and I used to stay up late in Metro West Massachusetts watching all those U.S. Open matches and just dreamed of being at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So with respect to the famed grass at Wimbledon, I got to get to a U.S. Open before my dirt nap.
And what kind of fights are you looking for?
Of the big three, who's the GOAT? Roger, Rafa, or Novak, in your opinion?
So it's really hard to argue against Djokovic, but my favorite of those three is Roger Federer. And when all three were at their best, Roger Federer is the king.
Some big fights going down this weekend. What are you most looking forward to seeing?
Well, Alexander Pantoja getting his championship opportunity. I think you can argue he's the best fighter on the roster right now that doesn't have a championship. And as most of you guys know, he's had a full year off to prepare to beat a guy that he's already beat twice. So I'm excited to see what Pantoja can do against, obviously, a much different, much better version of Brandon Moreno.
And with the main event as well, obviously, they both have very, very different styles. Everyone's very intrigued to see how they match up on the night. What about you? Are you intrigued to see that one?
I've never seen anything like Yair Rodriguez inside an octagon. He is one of one, as my broadcast partner Dominic Cruz always says. And to see a number like plus 320, an underdog price next to his name, is patently absurd. That being said, he's fighting the consensus pound-for-pound king that hasn't really shown us anything resembling a weakness, the guy who has the highest fight IQ in the game. But I do believe, with respect to Ilia Topuria and Josh Emmett and everybody else, the hardest matchup for Volk at 145 pounds is the one in front of him this weekend in the dynamic from everywhere Yair Rodriguez. And Yair's confidence is through the roof that he's going to shock the world and get this done. So we'll see.
And do you think...
division?
You know, we'll see. I mean, Alexander Volkanovski in our fighter meeting injected the name Aljamain Sterling into the conversation, right? Aljamain Sterling's going to fight at UFC 292 in Boston, and then he's probably going to leave the division. So I think the Aljo fight is one that Volk really is intrigued by. But yes, I do think Ilia Topuria is going to be next and absolutely worthy. So.
Do you think Volk gets to run it back with Islam?
Absolutely. I do think that Volk's legacy is already Hall of Fame worthy, and he doesn't really need to prove anything to anyone. But I think there's a lot of big fights for him at 55. And yeah, I think that rematch and Volk as a lightweight contender, if not champion, is an eventuality.
Jon, as far as your commentating work is concerned, obviously we're at the 2023 Hall of Fame. I put your commentary work in the same categories as Steven Quadros or Bas Rutten, Mike Goldberg, all the greats. Who were your inspirations as far as getting into commentating, and what careers did you follow when you got into commentating?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really had but one play-by-play influence. It was Sean McDonough, who still does a lot of the highest profile sporting events in the United States of America. I grew up a Boston kid. I got to work with him for a time. I was doing updates on his show, and I said something like first ever, and he said, first ever's redundant, you only say first. So Sean McDonough was a mentor and the guy that I always looked up to. And, you know, I've tried to pluck different things stylistically from guys that I think are good, but at the end of the day, you have to be yourself. And now I'm getting old. I've got about 20 years in the business, and you just try to get better every show and just acknowledge that you're never going to be perfect, and lean into deep breaths and lean into your skill set and just do the best you can.
One more last question for me. Obviously, you grew up in Boston. I live in Boston. Does Mac Jones get it done this season?
Oh my gosh. No, I don't see that at all. I honestly believe, with respect to Mac Jones, who's a great kid and I think a good leader, I think he's one of the five bottom quarterbacks in the league, man. I don't think he's the long-term answer whatsoever. And I know Malik Cunningham is being tried out as a wide receiver, but we're Team Malik. I'm hoping Malik gets a shot at some point in time. I'm not a Mac Jones believer. I just don't think he has the chops.
Thoughts and prayers to the Patriots, the Red Sox. Go Bruins.
Thank you, buddy.
Good seeing him, man. Always a pleasure, man. Appreciate it.